The President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. Thank you so much. Thank you. Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen. I'm really glad to greet you here at the 6th International Forum of Technological Development, Technoprom-2018. According to the tradition, it's happening here in Novosibirsk, in one of the most important business, industrial, and intellectual centers of our country, in the region where the large high-tech companies and high-level educational institutions. That's where famous Novosibirsk Akademgorodok is located with its powerful, innovative potential. And in terms of some developments created by the Siberian scientists of the Russian Academy of Sciences, we have already gotten familiarized in the frameworks of this forum. And its exhibition is very interesting. There are high prospect Russian projects, starting with nanomaterials and to medical and aerospace technologies. I hope that due to our forum that united both representatives of authorities, of science, of business development institutions, they are going to obtain necessary support and further development. In modern conditions of rapid technological changes, there is a global competition for industrial and scientific primacy. And Technoprom is on demand, and such events are exceptionally important. Knowledge and high-tech technologies should not be talked about in such a high-level audience, but they determine the efficiency of economy, help to cardinally change the level of life for people, the state administration to provide security, and effective developments and fast implementation is related to survival of the whole peoples and societies and states, and the position of the countries in the world, especially of such large states as Russia. That is why the scientific research breakthrough is one of the key national priorities and objectives. And I'm sure that we are capable for this breakthrough. We can unite the efforts of state, business, and scientific and educational community. We can widen the opportunities for creativity for our people. And we have been increasing the funding for science by a plan, and renewed the structure of research, and formed a comfortable climate for science-based technologies. I can say that in the last 17 years, funding of science grew in 3.7 times. And even in the current prices, it is even 23 times. And if we talk with many experts here in this room, I think this might be insufficient, and I agree with this. But we have certain opportunities, and we are going to go in this direction. We have been creating conditions for engaging talented youth into science, and we need to motivate young people by ambitious and meaningful objectives. We have to give them opportunities for self-realization, for achievement of high scientific results. They should feel on demand. And at the same time, it is necessary to increase the attractiveness of our scientists for the whole world, and we have to create these points of interaction. I come to our research and scientific centers. I see how many foreign experts come to work there. and it is pleasant for them. Their work is focused. We have what to work with jointly. There are attractive directions, higher prospect developments where our specialists have been going far. And also there are good conditions for joint ventures. We need to build up our capacities due to international collaborations. And that is why we need to develop in Russia mega science installations, and then scientists need to find responses to greater challenges, overcoming diseases, overcoming the lack of food, solving environmental problems, creating new materials and medicines. So we have seen such directions in the exhibitions. We have a plan to create a network of such installations, starting with Protvino and to Novosibirsk, Akademgorodok, and also in Vladivostok. And this will be a good contribution to special development of Russia and creating technologies with a higher focus of research and new technological developments. And one of the flagships is Novosibirsk, Akademgorodok. And it has always been such a flagship. We are going to support such quality. And this year, my colleagues have informed us that all of our plans will be implemented in time and with due quality. I can also say that the regional authorities and scientific community have carried out a lot of serious work in order to prepare this technological breakthrough. And we have been considering this project. There is its first public discussion at the forum, and I hope for your constructive proposals and remarks. It has been emphasized that one of the key directions for the development of Akademgorodok is to create a new high-tech competitive productions oriented to experts, first of all, and our business has to take active part in it. I must say that we are business-oriented and oriented to high technologies, and I think this orientation has been developing at high speed, and we are seeing very good results. I also know that one of the present topics for our topics is to improve the mechanisms for a practical application of our scientific research results. We have had traditionally a lot of problems to resolve in this sphere, but we have to build through this chain so that we would obtain applied results and turn the research developments into commercial products so that intellectual resources would give a payback and would improve the quality of life for our citizens. Esteemed friends and colleagues, through joint efforts, we are going to resolve all of the objectives we have in front of us. We are going to provide a powerful technological and scientific breakthrough not only for Siberia but for the whole country, and will definitely achieve strengthening of our technological development. And to conclude, I would like to wish to the visitors of Technoprom interesting, fruitful work, success, and all the best. I know that there are not only representatives of Russian science, business, NGOs, and also there are our colleagues from abroad, and I would like to say thank you to them for the attention they are paying to joint work with Russia. I wish you all the best and success. Good luck.
Ну все, я не попереводила. Может, еще будет.
Ну, прости, дорогая.
Ничего. Мы не знали.
Ну, хорошо получилось.
Хорошо, хорошо. Я думала, он там, ну, может, он еще с часу будет вот проводить.
может быть, он еще какую-то секцию проведет.
Уважаемые участники,
Dear participants, please stay at your seats. The plenary session will start in a few minutes. Development of Akademgorodok should be the driver of development of the entire scientific center. This requires implementation of a large project of the urban development, including Akademgorodok, Koltsovo, and Krasnoobsk. The territory between these formations serve as a resource for development. Now, preparation of the concept of the Novosibirsk Scientific Center has been completed. The development plan and the portfolio of scientific, institutional, infrastructure, and social projects have been developed. The concept developers relied on the best practices. They studied the spatial and network models of the successful ecosystems. Their objective is to find the global responses to the problems of global development, to ensure solution of the problems faced by the rich Russian economy. In the focus is acceleration of the tasks of economic development, and the main idea of the economic activity is concentration and consolidation of scientific and educational resources. The proposed project is a response to this trend and will allow to develop the base for its development. Only the innovative scenario presupposes a development of the territories as a modern, larger scientific complex. Thus, if the prepared plan for development of the Novosibirsk Scientific Center is approved, we can attain concentration of the sciences 2 times. The number of students by a factor of 3 times, and the number of foreign students by 5 times. These figures characterize the development rate of a scientific center. Achieving these parameters is possible in 3 main directions. Firstly, this is creating the modern material and financial educational base. Secondly, it's creating the living medium environment corresponding to modern urban practices. Thirdly, creating a modern ecosystem, including the Institute of Developments integrated into the world scheme. All this will allow us to create conditions which will make our scientific center absolutely competitive on the market of the world innovations, and will ensure inclusion of the scientific center into the added value. SKIF, Estao Fabrica, and the Center of Genomic Studies will be the central projects. 23 other projects have been selected, meant to ensure the leadership of the scientific center. This will allow the scientific center of Novosibirsk become one of the leading scientific centers of the world, which will become one of the drivers of the economy of the Siberian region, will lead the development of the branches and the Siberian branch of the Russian Academy of Sciences. Special attention will be paid to development of the Novosibirsk State University, with it's reaching not only the Russian but the world level. This is based on the personnel resources of the highest level. At the same time, significant investments are required into the development of the territory, creating the comfortable environment for the faculty, for the students, is important in terms of raising the competitive ability of the territory. It is especially important to maintain the existing atmosphere of Akademgorodok and its social environment, combining it with the new comfortable conditions. The scientific component of creating the scientific center will require creating new campuses and complexes, new leisure activities, facilities, and the territory. In the framework of implementing the project of the scientific center, we'll have to solve the problem of low transport accessibility and low connections. Development of the traditional ecosystem includes creating engineering structures needed to support the engineering companies and priority complex projects. At present, more than 15 high technology commercial projects have been selected, the implementation of which will boost the innovative activities. Implementation of the project of the development of Akademgorodok will ensure reaching the breakthrough in innovations. The model of innovative development and its example may be expanded to other regions. Implementation of such an ambitious and strategically important project for the Novosibirsk region and for Russia is impossible without the support of the President and of the Russian government. Mother Siberia, the legendary land extending thousands of kilometers, the great land, the Novosibirsk region is a place of strength, our motherland. This name has a wonderful energy, New Siberia. Some people may call it severe, but we people living here know the other image of Russia. It is not cold, but smiling. It's not strict, but warm. It's a cold region with a hot heart. Exploration of the Siberian land was not easy. Maybe it is here that the famous Siberian character was born in. The legendary courage, the generous soul. The Russian settlers came here more than 300 years ago. They built forts. They did everything to strengthen the right of the Russian Tsars to this land of Siberia. Siberia is vast, but the center of Siberia is a new city. This is how it looked at the beginning of the 20th century. It was named Novonikolaevsk. It was born from a small workers' settlement at the place where the railway bridge crossed the Ob River. Now it is a modern city with high development. The region has made a real breakthrough from the original start to high achievements. In September 1937, the special region was separated from the West Siberian region, called the Novosibirsk region. The favorable location makes the region a transport and passenger hub. The Trans-Siberian railways with its branches to Altai and Kuzbas, is the largest railway. Novosibirsk has one of the largest Russian railways. The Novosibirsk-Tolmachovo airport is approaching the international standards. 3 million people live in the region. The city and the region occupy nearly 2,000 square kilometers. Dozens of Siberian and Central Asian cities are within the accessibility limits. It's one of the largest Russian areas located in the West Siberian plain. Our neighbors are Omsk and Tomsk region, Krasnoyarsk region, and Kemerovo region, Altai Krai. Our agriculture is a huge agro-industrial complex. The production of meat, dairy products, and eggs is very stable, and Novosibirsk region is self-sustained in terms of foodstuffs. The exploration of virgin land was an important benchmark in the history of Siberia. This is what it looks like now. There is a monument to the tractor with which the Siberian pioneers worked on the virgin land. Now, other tractors were working on the field, allowing the agriculturists to achieve high results. The Novosibirsk region has been awarded 2 Lenin orders. One was awarded for the high achievements in the production of grain in 1956. The plant was 60 million puds, and the yield was nearly 2 times higher. The second order was awarded on the region in 1970 for the successes in the industry and culture. Не, я сейчас начну, это еще было мало.
Да?
Тем более по третьему разу.
Смотри, а то, мне кажется,
Да
ты
не, нормально.
очень переводишь. Ну, он, кстати, хорошо так говорил, понятно.
Конечно, у него и
ровно,
дикция
всё
хорошая, и
поставлено,
логичная
дикция хорошая,
всё, да.
да.
Его легко переводить.
Да. Ну, я как-то внутренне была готова и к трудному переводу, что уж какой пойдет, такой пойдет.
Да, мы сейчас знаем, что он хорошо говорит.
Да. Ну, я если бы знала, что будет 15 минут, я бы тебе отдала, потому
Ага,
что...
да, я бы тоже хоть бы приложилась
Да, конечно.
к этому делу.
Ну, мы просто с тобой думали, что дольше как-то будет. Мы с тобой, помнишь, подружились с того, что я тебе место в автобусе уступила, так что я это самый перевод, я тоже способна уступить, но видишь, кто бы знал, что он будет 15 минут.
Да, даже меньше. Он на самом деле в 11:05 закончил. Начал, закончил в 11:15.
Да. Ну, может, он еще раз выступит?
Ну вот, может, на
Ты его
закрытом
как
будет.
переводишь? Да, я тоже думаю.
Ну, то я не уверена.
Ну, давай это самое, если даже
Ну,
по
если что,
времени...
я начну.
Да, если там даже по времени, например, будет моя очередь, если он выйдет, то вот тогда ты его переводишь. Ну, там тоже 15 минут ты его...
А что ты молчишь-то? Да? Прости меня, дорогой мой. Миляш, еще раз, у тебя все, да? Да, давай. Сейчас, стойте. Паша делает объявление. Уважаемые участники, просим вас занять свои места.
Уважаемые участники, просим вас занять
Participants, please take your seats. The forum and the exhibition Technoprom-2018 is the place where professionals and expertise leaders are immersed in the regime of brainstorms and open discussions about what should be done to ensure technological leadership of Russia for years ahead. Our mission is to make a contribution to acceleration of progress, to accumulate the experience and generalize it, so that there were more high-tech productions. There was interaction between science and technology, and there were less barriers on the way. Biotechnologies, digital production, mega science, smart medicine, distributed energy, venture investments, hybrid education. These and other subjects are the matrix of our 4 days agenda. The key subject of the forum is science as industry. It is this formula that is able to direct the huge industrial and scientific potential of Russia, the flow of breakthrough technologies into education, into the lives of millions of people. And there is no better place for discussing this important subject as the region of Siberia, which accounts for 1/4 of industrial production of Russia. In the Russian Academy of Sciences, there is Akademgorodok, Technopark, and other research institutes. It turns out that Siberia is not only a bridge between East and West, but also between science and production. It's a bridge of dialogue, the mission of which is coming to new ideas and projects. It's handshaking, agreement, motivation, and orientation on the result and joint search for success. Dear participants,
Dear participants, we are starting the plenary session for the token Sciences Industry Agenda 2024. We're inviting Mikhail Kotyakov, the Minister of Science and Higher Education of the Russian Federation. Alexei Besprosvanov, Deputy Minister of Industry and Trade of the Russian Federation. Alexander Sergeyev, the President of the Russian Academy of Science. Andrei Klepich, Deputy Chairman, the Senior Economist, member of the Board of Directors of Внешэкономбанк. Andrei Svinarenko, the Senior Director of the Foundation of Infrastructure and Educational Programs for Rosnano Company. Alexander Praveraman, member of the Board of Directors of MSP Company. Alexander Pavalka, Director General, Chairman of the Board of the Russian Venture Company. The moderator is Irene Rossius from Russia One TV channel. Good afternoon, dear friends. Thank you for staying after this great speech of the President of the Russian Federation. And Vladimir Vladimirovich really brought science to pedestal. Last year, the strategy of scientific and technological development was adopted. And for the first time in the history of New Russia, we are talking about creating a national science project. And there are global challenges that we need to resolve together. And today, in our presidium, we see outstanding people. Together, we can make a breakthrough. And in 6 years, we'll be a completely different country with totally different indicators, not with the ones that were discussed at different sessions. We are going to achieve this fundamental objective. And Andrei Andreevich, so what do you think? 6 years, is it little time or much time for achieving such objectives? So these fundamental goals and objectives that are going to help us resolve the challenges that we have. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm happy to greet everyone at the second plenary session of our platform. And some of the events have been conducted already, and the agenda has been growing. We were talking yesterday about engaging talents and developing research centers, world-level science, and we are continuing this topic. So we are starting not with tabula rasa. And in science, 6 years is a rather modest time. A lot of programs require more time to be successful. However, in this time, we need to form the mechanisms and determine the priority directions that are going to allow us to definitely achieve by 2035 the objectives set in the technological development strategy. This 6-year period is widely understood as a period of development, investment into administration and staffing. This is a principally important period, so we have to act jointly. And the priorities are determined by the Russian Academy of Sciences, and Alexander Mikhailovich has organized this work. We need to understand what are the main areas for Russia in terms of scientific and technological development. And today we are going to focus our attention and our resources at developing these key directions. And I think that this work will be carried out not only in academic institutions, but it will be part of the university's agenda. Yesterday we were discussing it, so I think that we are going to resolve the issue of technological developments. We'll be moving on jointly. There are scientific components of ideas. We need to understand technologies. We need to understand the development of sectors that are going to create gross domestic product, and then Russia will be part of the 10 best economies, and then also Russia will be one of the 5 leading scientific and research states in the world. So I think that we will have a chance to ask you some more questions. When I came to the center of Novosibirsk, I saw a poster with Andrei Alexandrovich Travnikov, the acting governor, and it's written "less words and more deeds." I think this is a rather good slogan. And there is a question to Alexei Sergeyevich now about cooperation, because we are talking about science, and I'm talking about collaboration. Our session is called Science as Industry. And what has to be done with the Ministry of Science and with Ministry of Industrial Trade? So is there some joint work carried out? And who should be the driver, the industry or the scientists? Thank you, Irene. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I think the discussion has been happening on this topic for a rather long time. I'll answer the second question: who is the driver? And I think there cannot be one driver, either industry or science. And why is this so? Because there should be symbiotic development. There should be joint work and interaction between these two directions. And during these days, when we have been visiting the regions, we encountered a few different variants of development for events. First is when science develops technical solutions and begins the development of these decisions. But unfortunately, when we see how will this be applied to industry, and simple question, who needs it? How do you see yourself in the market? I think we haven't been sufficiently getting the answers to these questions. And in my understanding, and our understanding, jointly with my colleagues from the Ministry of Education and Science, I think that the connections between scientific sector and the real sector have not been sufficiently developed. And the second point is, second case is reverse, when the enterprises without involving scientists are trying to win over the market without making contributions for dozens of years. And then we don't see the high tempo of development for these enterprises. And then they are merged with the big enterprises, and with those that have serious programs in this respect. And that is why the answer to this question, it's like in sports. We need to move ahead as a team, and the bond from science to industry has to be transferred from one to another dependently on the goals. We need to have technological leadership. If we are talking about the provision of our domestic market, the industry has to use this bond and provide the needs of domestic market. If we talk about high-tech leadership, that in showers our president said that we have the goal not only the Russian technological leadership, but the international leadership. So then science has to take this bond and to satisfy the market and to create new needs and new branches of industry as it happens in the world market. And as for your second question, we definitely have the appropriate interaction. We have created it, and so in the Ministry of Education and Science, there are serious directions, and we interact with them. So they're thinking about practical applicability of scientific research results to commercialize the developments that scientific community is providing us with. So an example is our joint program of engineering centers that we started in 2013, and over the 5 years. And we supported more than 60 of such engineering centers. So every year we definitely allocate money for supporting these engineering centers, so it's a 50-50 funding. So these are not only on paper engineering centers, but the practical result is that there are about 1,100 contracts that have been made between these enterprises and the real sectors of economy. So the volume is 4 billion rubles, in relation to this program. And this year, the program is continuing. There are 12 more applications, and we suggest to create them not only at the universities, but we are going to accept applications for forming engineering centers with the use of the Russian Academy of Sciences. There are different forms of organization. And this is going to allow us to make the next step and to unite not only young people and the higher educational institutions, but to make a serious step towards the important high-tech developments. And as industrialists, we are waiting for this result. We are sure that this program is going to continue, and I think the objectives the President set to us are critically important. And jointly with our colleagues, we are definitely going to put efforts into it.
I have a question for Alexander Mikhailovich. Why is there no communication? Fundamental science is quite far from applied science. What can we do to bring them closer and closer to business so that we could fulfill the national task, so that each second company would implement the technological innovations? This is a very topical task and a question. As we develop, science is not becoming the productive force of the economy, and we complain about it. Of course, this is a topical issue, but I think that the formulation of science as a productive force comes from Marx in The Capital. And there were many talks about it many years ago. What does not work in this fundamental economic mechanism? I think that we can speak about whether this science is a driver or production is a driver, but I think that the situation is such now that the government should also be the driver. The problem is that the science cannot become one of the productive forces of the economy. Is the objective problem. We leaped from one economic formation into another one. We thought that everything would start working under capitalism without any help and support. But there are bottlenecks which require regulation by the government. In our case, this bottleneck is called the veil of death. There is fundamental science, there is applied science. There are large corporations and businesses which will happily take the achievements into the market, but there is a dead valley there in between. In the Soviet time, this chain of interactions was regulated by the government throughout its length. Science and the respective industries and the commercialization factors and productions, everything was sponsored by the government. Now the government gave up its role in this chain, and now it turns out that the government invests in the fundamental science, as Irina said very well, that President Putin put the science onto the pedestal. But this is a very important task. But the task of supporting the right part, this is the priority of business. In between, there is a dead zone. The government does not and cannot support this chain, and business is not ready yet to support the science because it does not feel that there may be contributions, and business is right because business evaluates progress by the profits made. So this is an important essential issue. This valley of death is the dead zone is the place about which a convention between the government and business should be reached about regarding joint support by preferential taxation by 50 and 50. If it is a failure, the government will pay for this. If it is success, the business will make additional contributions related to this. If we look at the strategy of scientific and technological development, largely the strategy is about this, how to develop such change in 7 priority directions. There is the 8th direction, it's fundamental science, but this is our task. But the main thing is how to make the science a productive force of the economy. Whom can we rely on? Here, the government should be the driver for passing the value of death. When we speak about small and medium-sized businesses, in the high technology sphere, because of the size of the businesses and because the profits are not large, it's difficult for such businesses to support this direction. But if we speak about large state corporations, large companies with state participation, these companies, because they're influenced by the government, should make an essential contribution into like passing this gap. Lately, we have been witnessing the situation that the large corporations are interested in this. Rosatom has recently held a meeting for this science to help Rosatom to update the scientific and technological achievements done. Rosatom, Roscosmos, Rostech corporations, large corporations producing hydrocarbons. Maybe these companies do not need science as much as those corporations. Yet, I think that the main problem for us to make this gap short is to raise the responsibility of the government and of the businesses, which should be demonstrated by large companies and large corporations, because the government influence is large there, and the volume of production will allow us to cross this zone. I think you remember, you will give me the floor. I want to react to what Mikhail Mikhailovich said. I want to draw your attention to the fact that excessive participation of the government can limit private initiative and principle. If we try to take responsibility for technological solutions in a fast-changing formation of the world, this will not bring about dynamic change in the competences. I don't think the government should make the major contribution. Of course, the government should be accountable for the first large contribution, but when we come from one level of technological development to the other more advanced level, this should not be only the task of the government. It's also the responsibility of the business, but this is the business with the acquire for, and our general achievement of general task is to form this segment. Science had more people than now. Science had a special infrastructure that allowed us to scale up the developments. All this is business. It's related to business. My colleagues will speak about it, but we should be more accurate forming the formulations. Like we should develop the priorities. I read that funding should go down and business should undertake half of the responsibility for scientific development. The talk is about like that the government as a driver should be a regulator of passing this dead zone. Then when I speak that there should be a convention, an agreement between the government and the businesses, that means that the government should show to the business there are certain mechanisms of overcoming the risks. When we say that the fundamental, the startups must be responsible for the breakthroughs, I can say that businesses will not fund this because here we have 80% of risk. Business should be guaranteed that if there are failures, the government will be ready to pay for the failures. We are not setting the tasks what it should be done. The tasks come from the market. The world practice is that if one startup out of 10 works, that is good. So this is we'll speak about the venture capital, and I'll ask the microphone to be given into the first row. I have a question for Valentin Nikolaevich. Where are you? Please give the microphone to our speaker. We'll return to you, don't worry. They talk about convergent science and that some areas of science will be the past. So how is the Siberian branch of the Russian Academy of Sciences prepared for this? Returning to the interest of business for science. Indeed, Russia has covered a long and difficult way of becoming like non-government businesses. And those branches and those industries that have reached the world of global development, which should stay there, they're beginning to feel that it's not enough for them to find support in the international technologies. They need the support of the Russian technologies. Why? Because foreign technologies, it's not the priority. And I can name such large companies which are very close to my heart. These are hydrocarbon processing companies like Gazprom-Neft, Rosneft, Sibur. They are beginning to invest large amounts of money into science, not fundamental science, but the science related to survey, so that they could reach the survey to a certain level. Speaking about the new directions, regularly emerge. In 1999, I headed the international team of scientists. We wrote a prediction on the use of chemistry in the energy industry. We made the right prediction, but we did not foresee the huge progress in the development of energy batteries like lithium-ion batteries and supercondensers. This is a new direction which is interdisciplinary science that combines several scientific areas, and of course such new directions emerge. It's important for us to upkeep the status of interdisciplinarity. What is the advantage of the Siberian branch of the Russian Academy of Science and of Akademgorodok? We are like a node for a large number of competences. We have accessible institutes for physicists, chemists, wherever we have problems. For example, now genome editing. This term was not really known to scientists, but in order to walk in this direction, we need chemists and biologists. It is not easy to, it is even dangerous to predict development of such directions. They are born very fast, then they are upkept, and then the interest goes down. I remember such problems when the interest was like extinguished completely, but at least to a certain level. The Russian Academy of Sciences is prepared. That's a good answer. Thank you. The world investigations demonstrate that in the future we need the technological breakthrough. I want to address Vladimir Nikolaevich. You hold economic investigations. What economic effect do you hope for? Like talking about the expenses of the GDP, science should account for 1%, and 2% should be support of the business. Speaking about the influence on the economic growth, we have very low payback from the capital. Money does not work well. Money does not move the economy. We have work limitations all over the world. And in some, the 60% profit of the economic growth is our mission, our target. Very interesting discussion was held recently how science transfers its knowledge to the society without claiming to give the final solution, understanding how competent they are. We see kinematics in German universities. This is taught, and many university graduates are really working in the industry. If we look at the north of Italy, which is the industry, they rely upon this several graduations of the Milan Polytechnical University. They pass on the competencies to the industry with the graduates, and this is an important task for Russia to promote the university science. And then all the new branches of the science, new industries, if they originate from the laboratories, then we'll have a chance to get division of science into new industries, the new energy, biotech, and new med, non-carbon electronics, new transport systems, and a number of other interesting industries. The only way, as I believe, to promote these industries is to form the advanced graduates, students, master students, postdocs who will move the economy forward, and then we will move forward. The VK is doing that. They have opened 14 such centers. Is that right? Are you working with universities? Yes. I cannot say that we opened them. It's the case when there was no directive or something like that. Rather, we tried to create conditions for uniting the stakeholders, to unite universities and consortiums which unite the industrial players, scientists, the innovative part, startups Mikhail Mikhailovich mentioned. Here, I guess this is a very good move forward when we do not try to replace them, but we allow them, people display their main initiative.
So we have this discussion grounds, and we can have a brainstorm. Maybe we should play in futurology, or maybe not, because you're related to these risky projects. You put money into it. What will we have by 2024? Maybe we'll be flying to Novosibirsk not in 4 hours, but maybe 1.5, and maybe there will not be no different time zones. We'll be taking some wonderful pills which will help us sleep well. So then there will be the extra sound liner, and we'll be able to have such opportunities. So if we pull it off till 2025, then we'll have the lifespan and longer, and people will be getting older in more time. I think it's a very interesting story. Yes, do you make the majority of your investment? So the centers that we have been forming it's typically we talk about a common discussion ground, but unfortunately, as they have rather rigid obligations, they're now responsible for developing the schemes of working with engineering centers, and they have to train people. They have the research agenda and serious responsibilities, and also information part. We have 1,000 licenses, and over the lifespan of a company, they have to be transferred to industry. How do you improve the effect? Some innovation appears. How do you give it away to business so that it brings in the profit, so then business would use it? As Mikhail Mikhailovich said, that in screwdrivers production, you cannot jump into the first 5. So we are looking for the technologies that will allow us to make an authentic breakthrough, so that business would start believing us. Because you said yourself that there is a lack of trust. How do you imagine trust? Okay, here is a business and conscientiously doesn't believe in science or in technologies. Believe me, please, that when people feel the need in it, where they saw the ceiling of their efficiency, where they saw risks for themselves. For example, let us talk about Rosatom. So people have a true need in diversification and renewal. They put in their own money. We can be saying that they don't trust, let us say, that they could not locate orders in Akademgorodok. They prefer to buy it from outside. But if people are truly thinking about breakthrough, then buying ready-made technologies, this is a dead end. When we were buying products of IBM, the series 370, so we went through this story. And when we bought ready-made technologies, we were constantly running into the situation of the need to develop them and the impossibility to develop somebody else's technologies. We will not be able to do this. We cannot win over somebody else's, let us say, somebody else's talents, let us say, on somebody else's back. So in order to have technological breakthroughs, we need new knowledge, and then we need to engage talents. As a teacher from physical mathematical school, he said that we are teaching what's not written in textbooks. I think that they are geniuses as mentors, as teaching scientists. But we also have the universities. There is Mr. Golozhinsky from Tomsk State University. And there are dramatic changes with professions that we are preparing people who are not ready to respond to these challenges, what to do, how to deal with this human capital. I would like to note 3 points in terms of these questions that will be discussed till 2024. The first point, that science and education are two sides of one coin, and research thinking as part of any professional activity, and professions have been changing. We are talking about trans professions, because many professions are going to change before the students graduates from universities. So you need to change yourself, to change the profession, and you need to have the ability to create your life and your professional activities. And I think for universities this is a very important challenge and objective. So we need to implement science into the tissue of education, and we then need to respond to the challenges of education with this foundation. So then we have to create people who are responsible who are ready to be responsible for technological agenda, for innovative entrepreneurship. And I agree completely when it is said that this generation, that we have to create conditions for a large number of persons who are able to be creative and to make contributions to life, to economy. And before we were talking about heroes who appeared, maybe 3 or 5% of the population who are ready to conduct entrepreneurial activity. And then the objective of higher education institutions is to help students to model such situations, to try on this entrepreneurial role, and to connect your life with creating an enterprise of high-tech type. And the third key challenge, this is professionalization of science and training scientists, because science is so complicated now. It is so diversified that there is no place for lone heroes who would be a marketologist and team leader, a visionary, a scientist who sees the future science. So really the heroes should be groups and collectives. But what Alexander Mikhailovich is talking about, when dozens of new researchers need to become part of our current economy, so then we need to have new technologies for training such people. And together with the Federal Education Science Institute, we have 5 leading research centers where we are trying to diversify and to create the teams. And this is separate activities that has to be installed in the modern universities. So these are the 3 important points. Thank you. And even though they saw that money, they say money is not the most important, comfort is not the most important. It's not so. Alexander Arnoldovich, who created, yesterday we talked about attracting talents. And you built the residential housing for 500 young scientists. For 500 scientists and 95 young scientists, and this comfort is highly important. In addition to resolving social issues, you also give financial opportunity to implement the project. So what is the mechanism for obtaining financial assistance? And how often do you come for such help? Thank you, Irene. Dear colleagues, so thank you that you remember about implementation of this project that helped to keep 92 young scientists who had offers abroad, and their legal contracts and invitations to work abroad. for implementing the project that was carried out at the decree of Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, our president. This was a cooperative Sigma. And colleagues provided active help. I mean Mikhail Katsukov, I mean Alexander Karelin, the deputies of State Duma of the Russian Parliament. So they helped the project from the point of view of social protection provisions. And as the head of corporations, the president described me to develop SMEs. And it is a bit prosaic in comparison to higher objectives our colleagues talked about, but we are trying to overcome Death Valley for some startups. I think we have an insufficient number of startups. And how we assist rapidly developing companies in breakthrough industries, the so-called gazelle companies. So we are working with a network of engineering centers of the Russian Federation. So I want to dwell on 4 slides. The first slide is this investment elevator. And we have a development institute. Sometimes the support is not consolidated. And development institutes have varied mandates and different tools, but the subject of SMEs, and as a president of the Academy of Sciences, Alexander Sergeyev, has talked about it, that SMEs are in the greatest risk area because they do not have sustainability stock as large businesses have, state businesses or businesses with state participation. So they need to be supported by development institutes. So there is a fund for developing industry, and it helps to obtain credits at 5%. For 50% from the sum of the project, from 1 to 5. From 1 to 5. If the shoulder is of the project initiative is 15%, the other 35% are sort of suspended in the air. So we are talking exclusively about high-tech, innovative projects. Other projects are not considered. So 35% are suspended in the air, and commercial loans are impossible because a project cannot sustain such interest rate. So the development institutes give certain guarantees and shares the risk with the bank with remaining 35%. And if this project is a high prospect from the point of internal market, external market, and the import substitution, then and in terms of the capital of the company, a Russian foundation of direct investment can become part of it, and foreign companies, especially because the law gives this opportunity. There is the limitation has been alleviated to 49% for participation of foreign companies. So this is a large breakthrough, and we really hope that foreign companies, especially from partnering countries that continue interacting with us, they can come to us.
If a project has export potential, which is the 4th square, the Russian Export Center supports small and medium-sized businesses, brings them to the markets, conducts marketing studies, makes a marketing program. Thus, they build a chain which is called an investment lift. A few words about startups. and about crossing the valley of death. Of course, this is the most difficult stage for small and medium-sized businesses, commercial businesses, banks, and also banks with the government participation, like VTB and Sberbank and other banks do not like to enter such projects or do not enter them at all because the risks are high, the risk of default is high. Mikhail Katyukov mentioned one startup of 10, so the risks are really high for startups, and corporations support such situations, sharing the risks with banks, thus bringing the guarantee to 1%. It varies from 70 to 100%, but in most cases it aims at 100%. I think we'll change our documents to bring this guarantee to 100%. The sum for this year is 2 billion 250 million rubles. Next year it will be higher than that. There will be subsidizing by the banks of certain directions, but even with this subsidizing of the credit rate, the banks do not want to work with startups. So we'll have to choose certain areas in the directions we want to understand from the scientific communities, because we are not professionals. There is a decree of the President of 299 development of technologies in the Russian Federation. Of course, we are oriented on that, but we are waiting for precision suggestions from the Academy of Science, from industry. Speaking about gazelles, the next slide, please. Just like in startups, we had to give a definition of a startup. So we gave a definition of gazelles. These are companies growing for the last 3 years for the revenues not less than 20% each year. This situation is better. If banks credit such companies, even in high-tech industries, meeting 3 criteria we mentioned, one of which we mentioned is at least 20% growth, priority industries, second one, and matching the directions mentioned. We have many such examples, and we believe that here we have certain achievements for a breakthrough for small and medium-sized businesses. This is related to the fact that large companies, including those mentioned today, like Rosatom, Rostech, Gazprom-Neft, Rosneft, order more and more science-intensive products from small and medium-sized businesses. While in the early stages of these corporations, most orders came from large companies, and small and medium-sized companies accounted for a very small sum of money because some of their products are export. Well, allow myself to use the foreign currency. That was $1 billion US. Now we are coming to the limit of $3 billion. That's close to 40. Now we are coming to the limit of $47-48 billion. But this is not important. The important is that the number of positions was 8.4 thousand positions. Now we have 300,000 positions. That means we are moving towards science-intensive industries due to orders for large companies. It's critically important for engineering centers to support it. engineering centers are beginning to develop and to be opened here in Russia. We are not alone. We work in cooperation with such actors as large universities, including the universities based in outside Moscow, Ina Praktika, RFPI, Russian Export Center. So opening such engineering centers with the functions described on the slide, I'll not talk much about it, that will complement the chain, the pool we're talking about. Thank you. It's a very good presentation. And so far, we had the only presenter who showed us the PowerPoint presentation. Speaking about support, that is important. Andrei Gennadievich, please tell us about your experience of working with startups, entrepreneurs, scientists. What will you say about this interaction and maybe the Valley of Death? This is a very intriguing story, but I want to draw your attention to what our Minister of Science and Education started with. He said that we had the strategy, and the main focus is on development of the mechanisms, technologies of achieving the goals set. In this regard, I recalled the statement by Chinese military leader Sun Tzu, who said that a strategy without tactics is a slow way to victory, and tactics without strategy is just a way to defeat. Very often, when we discuss strategic documents, we discuss certain moments, and not always are these moments key moments. We try to make them like a kind of a leverage that will allow us to achieve all the figures, goals, and objectives set. We fail, and this is logical, so I agree with Mikhail Mikhailovich. In this regard, frankly speaking, this element of our discussion that regarded who the driver should be. The driver is responsibility. Neither the science nor the industry wanted to take responsibility for the directions which will be considered priority, although there is a decree of the president, and the technological ways have been determined when the scientific development ways have been determined. Of course, both should be the driver, but each party should be specialized. And the task of science is to create new markets, to validate them, and to ensure them with the scientific support and the basis for new technologies. The task for the industry is, of course, also related to creating new markets, especially when it comes to concrete companies, but mostly the industry as agglomeration is related to traditional, understandable markets, understandable for the nearest 5 or 10 years. But then it's a question of visionarism. But I think it's more responsibility of science in the longer term perspective. What can we say about our experience? We work with startups. Our startups are contractors of scientific investigations, and the amount of these investigations approaches several billion rubles. They're being conducted in cooperation with universities and academic research institutes. We have created 15 nano centers. One of them is, it's one of the best, is in Akademgorodok of Novosibirsk. We hope that its activities will be expanded. The question is being discussed to expand its area in Academ Park to locate the companies created in our nano center. There are 15 such centers, as I mentioned. We also invest in engineering companies, naturally, in the framework of our technological mandate. We have created a Center for Technologies Transfer together with the Russian Academy of Sciences several years ago, which helps scientists to create new technologies and startups. And we actually, they established several dozens of startups with our tools, and they attracted about a billion rubles in investments. Of course, we need skilled personnel. They need skilled personnel to solve their tasks. I would not agree with Mr. Doloshinsky that the mission of the university is limited by the students. And for some reason, universities do not want to take the responsibility for additional further education, for training and retraining of the working people who also need the competencies you are going to give to your students. This is an important subject. Therefore, as universities do not want to take this responsibility, we decided to try to do it ourselves without interfering with the activities of the universities. We are holding the programs of training and retraining of engineers for companies that introduce new technologies. We do it together. We have like a common contract. We usually choose a contractor, that's usually a university, and based on our requirements and on conditions of financing with the contractor, we do that. We do that not only in terms of the personnel, but also in terms of understanding like the problems related to standardization, certification, permit documents. Besides, we also do we open markets for new technologies because a large part of works is related to the technical regulation of working with large corporations. It's a long talk. The process of retraining is very interesting. We talked about the drivers, but here you can see that the business is a driver for new professions and for raising qualifications because it needs skilled personnel, of course. Those who pay the money are the driver. Those who employ people are the driver because they're interested. And of course, business does not have such a problem. Business can establish its own corporate retraining center, which many companies actually do. In fact, universities are left. I didn't hear that, though. Thank you very much. Andrei Nikolaevich is also present here, and he attends these meetings not the first time, and he has opinions, and we can he can compare what it was like last year and this year. Your opinion was that funding should be increased by orders of magnitude. Did you see which such funding is really necessary and which areas should be specially funded? Irina, thank you. Vladimir Vladimirovich already mentioned that over the 17 years, funding of science has increased, but that's for 17 years. If you look at the recent 10 years, that fundamental science has been funded thanks to implementation of the president's decree has really raised, but now we can say that the expenses are rather low. Funding of the civil R&D by the government has reduced by 1/3. Now the situation is started to change this year. So if we take private funding, for example, we will not see the about it is becoming to grow. Maybe 10. We'll see 10% growth this year, thanks to the National Science Project, which is mostly aimed at the mega science and infrastructure, and establishing new educational centers. I think that the level of R&D, which is 1.1% of GDP, will grow to 1.24, 27. This is important because we're changing the trend and we're beginning to accelerate. Although beginning with 2018, when R&D expenses were 1% in China, now they already have 2%, which is funded by the government and by private businesses. I'll not talk about the government, but speaking about private businesses, they are very different. Alexander Vovich spoke about the smaller businesses, and this system of support is quite extended. We have gazelles, and they are growing, but we have another aspect. These are large businesses, and certain changes in their behavior can be seen. Alexander Mikhailovich mentioned that together with Valentin Nikolaevich. I am talking about Gazprom, Rosneft. They have started to fund 3D simulation of the survey of deposits, working with viscous oils. And Gazprom has interest in achievements in energy accumulators that is going beyond their traditional sphere. Maybe the weakest point is not the valley of death, but the absence of breakthrough studies and developments, because for a corporation it goes beyond its competence and short-term interests and short-term establishment of new markets. That requires long-term work with the facilities. So, but when the government supports this area, we are talking about, say, the experimental setup and private businesses. We are talking. We will not account for the creation new technologies and establishment new markets. Of course, the government cannot do everything, not only in this fundamental science but also in applied sciences. We are talking about the fundamental achievements, but even large corporations are not interested in the achievements in the fundamental science. If they are making, for example, the large aircraft, when we make some changes in the existing designs, but that's very good. But if they continue working with perspective works, with electricity on the planes, with them work with machines that will fly in 2030, the corporation will not do that. Andrei Nikolaevich Tutov was not that, but we have a Tsagi center. They are doing certain works together with the Russian Academy of Sciences. These are breakthrough works on the aviation engine that works with superconductivity, and they will have a flying model. These are unique things. If we talk about such agreement, such partnership between business, government, and science, it does not matter whether business will have some government participation or business just private. This is a very important challenge, and there is great interest in what the Russian Academy of Sciences is doing. Our task is to help them to be born and to live the first moments of their life. I think that the experience of Rosnano is unique, although it's often criticized. Rosnano has failed projects, but indeed there are many projects that would never be fulfilled in photonics, nanotechnologies, Baikal microprocessor. These are scientific breakthroughs. And in addition to the military project called Elbrus, these are the only breakthrough developments that are now continuing. And this has been done thanks to Rosnano. Bankers are not playing the major roles. They are not the Bank of the World Bank. We have some innovations and web innovations they could be doing. Maybe we should expand the mandate of Rosnano since it is successful, and we should create new funds when we talk about biotechnologies, medical technologies. Maybe we need a corporation, Rosbio, or something like a network structure that would unite the efforts of the Russian Academy of Sciences, the private business institutions, because this is the area where small businesses and private businesses play an important role. This should be something like a new contract between the government and the businesses about the scientific achievements, which should involve the scientific community and scientific expertise. No company can provide independent expertise for its project. Moreover, we're facing the situation when the trials of prototypes are falsified. This should be done by state centers or independent auditing companies, which cannot be, challenged. This sometimes we have deficit of honesty and professionalism. Here, the efforts should be combined by the government, by the Academy of Sciences, by the businesses. Thus, we'll be able to solve this problem. And this is not a question of money. The main problem is not the money, but the new solutions.
Thank you so much. So research and development, this is intellectual property that needs to be appropriately protected. We have representatives of the World Intellectual Property Organization. Please, you register patents. How is everything developing? Are there many patents? Are they interesting? We can protect any inventions and samples, but they, by themselves, they are the drivers that determine technological possibilities of any country. And in order to provide a breakthrough in the technological development of the country and provide technological leadership, we need to understand how are these technological opportunities determined for research institutions and for the state. And there are definitions for such tools. The greatest sums of money are saved at the stage of decisions about scientific developments. And to make these decisions, we need to have honest scientific vision, the ability to predict, and we need to understand that these are directions where a lot of money is invested, and there should be patent analytics, patent information, and this information is quite objective. It has been compiled for hundreds of years, and the world community adheres to this principles, the novelty, the invention level, the technical solution, technical results, all of this have to be described. And also this is information of legal type, and you cannot bring an object of intellectual property to the market without this, and impossible to achieve anything in the world. And in order to do it, we need to do patent research of the deep level. Not simply the information that you can get from the internet due to the Ministry of Education. So each one of you can use a mobile device and determine any technical term. But we need to have technological reconnaissance of whole branches of industry. This can be a response to a specific technical question in relation to using certain term. And this need is objective. So our largest companies, Transneft, Gazpromneft, the Russian railroads, they ordered in our project office, which developed a method of patent analytics. And we transfer this methodology to everyone, and we ask to develop it jointly. We are ready to teach you how to use this methodology. Its development was rather complicated. We got qualification evaluation of the World Intellectual Property Organization, and Gazpromneft asked our developments to be kept confidential. There's commercial character, so this is a definition of what should be developed, what should be funded, and there should be some objective criteria employed. Of course, scientific and technical literature has to be analyzed. Patent analysis is not just a comparison of one patent with the other. This is analysis of all the technical information in the world. And then the percentage of the Russian economy in the world need to be seen from the point of view of technological priorities in the world, gaining our grounds in the world, and seeing what applications are already made, what will turn into a patent into 7, 8, or 9 months, where some research development is going in parallel. And the scientific research, the level of result is 0.96. It's 15 times lower than in Western countries. So there's so much investment of state investments and billions of private investments. They have to be directed to achieving results, not simply creating scientific and technical information where there's no sign of an object of intellectual property that can enter the market. So in our state programs, we suggest to evaluate the results of our funding and investment. So we propose to evaluate the efficiency of activities of those who were given state money. First of all, this is a share of expenditures during which some key technical solutions were created that can be patented. And then we can determine the key directions where we are accomplished. It's not an accomplishment if we are shown, for example, an icebreaker which was built for a few billion rubles, and they say it's so new, but we know that there is only one object of intellectual property that has been patented, and with all the others we have to check, we have to figure it out. This approach is ineffective if we say that the key technical solutions were right and the money was spent right. Then we can see that the Krylov Institute, it has enormous efficiency, 50% of means that can be non-material, and so there will be the world breakthrough. And we are saying that this technology is to be patented in the world. And such opportunities exist, so the state can become a driver and then hundreds of millions are paid by the state. It's an important driver, and then it does not evaluate the share of expenditures. So we need to support those who are creating the key technical solutions that can be protected by patents internationally. This is a beautiful speech, and please believe me that here are the people who are definitely result-oriented, because really we have global objectives and we have little time. So, dear friends, we have come to the end of our session. We need to make conclusions now. Mikhail Mikhailovich, as a representative of science, I don't want to be standing in between the audience and its lunch. A lot of things have been said, and I would like to call everyone for common responsibility. And I agree that one of the main drivers is a responsibility for our technical development. And of course, we should not just keep one branch responsible. Each one of us has to maximally make contributions into the sphere. And I would add to the words of Tomsk University rector. He said we need to train such and such persons, and we need to understand that we have to do it not in 5 years, but we have to do it today. So this 35,000 researchers, which we were talking about. So these are today's students, and this time has come. So we need, not in the future, but at present, we need to come back to the workplaces and immediately fulfill the agenda. We talked about it well. We had different opinions, different emotions. We shouldn't just wait for the government to come in and to do everything, because we have to ourselves reach objectives, and we are part of the country. So this is our current agenda. Thank you for this high-content discussion and for working together at the Technoprom. Bon appétit.